everybody's retirement is different and it's based on personality. And there's no one stop answer for all of this.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Blah, Blah, Blah Something Wellness Podcast. We are going deeper into retirement realities. I am joined by some familiar faces at this point, and we have a new guest. So in true fashion, I am your host, Tami Sharp. We're going to go around, have my team introduce themselves, and then Bill, we will have you introduce yourself. So Lawson, will you go, please?
Sure. My name is Mike Lawson. I did 24 years with the San Diego Sheriff's Department. I've been retired 2 years now. I have a part-time job. I am the wellness coordinator for a medium-sized police department just south of San Diego called Chula Vista Police Department. I'm a one-man wellness unit, just trying to figure things out and just trying to implement some resources for our people, both professional staff, sworn staff, and excited to be here. I definitely have some experience with retirement and love to give my 2 cents.
Thank you. Ken, will you go?
Absolutely. Good morning or good afternoon, depending on the time you're watching this. My name is Ken Koch. Retired from the Flagstaff Police Department in Northern Arizona after 21 years. Went on to be the chief of police in Taos, New Mexico. Tried retirement the first time after that job. Didn't stick. Went back to work as an assistant chief and chief for the University of Colorado in Boulder. Retired from the sworn side the second time in 2018, and that didn't stick. And I went back to work for a regional law enforcement training center here in Northern Colorado in 2020. And I have retired for the final time as of December of last year.
Yay!
Yeah.
Thank you.
Vincent Scotto. I spent 20 years with the New York City Police Department. I retired as a supervisor. It's been 13 years now, a little over 13 years. And I had done some other things outside of law enforcement. I had a seasonal tax franchise. I've been a financial advisor, and I've been a sports coach. And I'm now actually writing funny police stories. And I started working with law enforcement coaching. I guess now it's coming on about 8 months. But prior to that, I found myself kind of feeling this pull towards doing something with the mental wellness space as it pertains to first responders, but primarily law enforcement officers because of my own personal challenges, not only while I was active, but then post my police career. So I feel I had something to give back and as they say, pay it forward. So that's kind of what brings me where I'm at now.
Awesome. Thank you. And Bill, welcome.
Well, thank you very much. My name is Bill Fraass.
Thank you very much.
I had to do the little Elvis. Well, my name's Bill Fraass. I did 27 plus years at the Sausalito Police Department in the Bay Area, the good side of the Golden Gate Bridge. I like to tell everybody. I went from 19-year-old reserve officer to captain. I was the acting chief of police when I had to retire due to an injury I suffered back in 2002. That continued to nag me until this day. I had a little bit of everything in my career and I saw a little bit of everything. So in retirement, I wanted to do something and help the profession still. So I started up my own consulting firm and I provide consulting to law enforcement, business, and community groups regarding public safety and law enforcement matters. I've been retired for almost 2 years now. So I'm kind of the rookie to the group regarding the retirement game. But I grew up in a law enforcement family and I saw law enforcement officers go from active into retirement. Some of it was forced because of injury and others were on their own terms. And being from a law enforcement family, I saw the impact on that. So I've always wanted to help cops. I still want to help cops, and that's why I'm here.
Awesome. Well, thank you all. Thank you all for your service. Thank you all for being here. And I want to kind of start at the beginning of your career, set the baseline. When you guys were new into the profession, One, did anybody teach you anything about retirement? Let's just start there. Did you know it? I know, Ken, you had good mentors. So you had a little bit different law enforcement upbringing, but where did you guys start in the beginning of your careers as far as awareness of how important planning for retirement was?
So my dad is retired NYPD, so I had I guess, a little bit of a bird's eye view of the career, and I'm thankful for that, to kind of see what it was about. Him being my mentor in that regard. Uh, I'm smiling because as you're asking the question, Tammy, I'm thinking about like my first official day getting sworn in, and all these older officers came up and spoke on the podium, and there were thousands of us brand new cops, and they all said, "You do 20 and you get out." Like that. That was my indoctrination into retirement. You do 20 and you get out. So it just brings me back to that moment in time. And but outside of that, having my dad and then that, blanket statement, uh, to your point, there wasn't really much beyond that. You kind of had to feel your way.
Ken, what about
Yeah, and for me, Tammy, what I'd just like to clarify, the mentors I had talked to me about retirement in the sense of money. And I'm very blessed to have that kind of input early on in my career and that I was smart enough to listen. But nobody talked to me about actual retirement or retirement plans or all of the things you have to consider when you do make the decision that it's time to go. So there's a difference between financial planning and actually retiring that I think is important to differentiate.
Although, yeah, for me, nothing organized. I mean, during my career, I always tell the story. There's this old school deputy that I was probably only 6 months on. It was a piece of paper. He's like, "Here, fill this out." And I didn't even know what it was, but it was a deferred comp sheet to put away money. And like, just being honest, I wasn't making that much money at that time. I mean, way back when. And he wanted me to do $50. I was like, $50? Like, I need that $50. He's like, just fill it out. And he literally made myself and another young deputy fill it out. And he might not even be around anymore. I don't know, remember his name, but I'm so glad he did. Like, because obviously, that money, fast forward to now, having that money put away is just, I can't imagine if I didn't do it. So, I mean, that is the financial part. I think that theme will keep coming up. And then, fast forward, luckily I had friends that retired before me. I was able to talk to them and just kind of figure it out, but nothing organized. I'm trying to bring that to my department. I'm trying to teach a seminar on retirement and bring back some former officers just to kind of Q&A. What's something you did good? What's something you could pass on to the younger people to kind of get them prepared? But nothing organized, and I'm glad we're having this conversation.
Awesome. Bill, what about you?
Well, same thing, nothing organized at all. My department had a history of being a training ground for larger agencies. People would come, do 2 or 3 years, take off. So nobody retired from the PD. It wasn't until basically my generation that had been around in that PD for a while started retiring that actually people retired. Everybody else retired out of San Francisco, Sonoma County, you name it. But my retirement education actually came from my father. He retired 1 year from the same department before I started. So he retired in May of 1995. I started in May of 1996. And now he's just celebrated his 30th year of retirement, and he's 81 and he's doing wonderful and he's enjoyed every moment. So that's what he taught me was when it's time to go, know when it's time to go. And mine was a little bit different because my retirement was medical. So it was 3 years earlier than I expected it to happen. But because I had that mentoring of, you know what, when it comes, be prepared for it. Think about what you want to do, kind of have a game plan. And because of my injury, I knew that I was going to not be on the job any longer than age 50. And so I started thinking a little bit beforehand is when I retire at 50, what do I want to do? And there was not a lot of thought process from other people helping me with that because the rumor at the PD was I'm a generational cop. I was going to be there till the day I dropped. I was going to be there until the acting came away from my title. I'd be the chief. I'd be there forever. And one day they'd wheel me out. And nobody believed. So when I said, I'm out the door at 50, when I went out the door at 47, that kind of shocked everybody. But it was the process that I learned from my father and from talking to his friends that were retirees as well, was start not as much financial, because financial would be there because of what you put away in deferred comp, what your retirement plan is. Be aware of how you have to budget your money, but have a game plan in your mind for what you want to do afterwards. Because they said once that badge comes off and you're now a retired cop, because you never stop being a cop, but you're a retired cop, you have to realize that the job moves on, so you have to move on. And that's kind of what guided me.
And I love
Oh,
that.
sorry.
No, no, I love that. Go, Vin.
So I'm listening to the three guys, and it just brings back a lot of thoughts, and everyone touches on some really poignant and key points. And just to circle back a little bit, I know I led off with kind of like a joke with retire in 20, and it stuck in my brain, but it really was the beginning of the plan, Bill, in the sense that I kind of had a window into the life prior to coming on, and I realized the challenges I'd have in front of me. And it kind of incentivized me early to have a plan. Now, granted, it wasn't like it was this perfect blueprint. It was a work in progress over many years, but I always had that in the back of my mind. Okay, it's a career, but the career is going to end, and hopefully it ends well after 20. And one of the things that I encountered, like I was actually on list to get promoted again prior to retiring. And like you, Bill, I got injured as well, but I had my 20 years in. Uh, but probably within the last 5 years, I committed myself to that 20-year plan. And I started like trying to think of things that I felt passionate about outside of law enforcement. And we all know a lot of men and women that are in this profession, they have a hard time leaving. And it's not like they're getting encouraged by their colleagues to leave either. It's almost like, I don't want to say misery loves company. I'm not saying what we did was miserable, but we've had our moments, right? And you had people, they were afraid to take that leap, and they wanted you to kind of stay with them. Hey, we're just cops. And we all know that we're much more than that. And it took me some time. I realized it, but then when I was getting closer, you have those doubts, like we all do with various things in life. But I was hell bent on leaving. But the one thing I wanted, and we can circle back to, which I think is very important as we help others, even though I had a plan, I didn't give myself time to take that breath. I jumped right into something. And I think that was a mistake for me personally. I needed time to process the career. So when I got hit with some challenges post-career, that was part and parcel the reason why. I was so hell-bent on leaving. I had it in my brain, 20 and out. I ended up deciding, I had a couple of different options. I ended up deciding on one, and it was a bad choice. I think maybe, now hindsight is 2020. Maybe if I would have processed a career, really, really leaned in to, hey, what's the next chapter of my life? I feel like maybe I might have been a little bit better off. And that's just me. But I think those conversations, like for people like us that are now on the other side, I think it's crucial to pass that wisdom along.
When you guys all hit on some really, really important points, what you just said, Vin, about taking that moment before you jump in. And Ken, we can kind of come around. Did you jump in after your first retirement, or what was your retirement? What happened?
Yeah. So, I hear Bill talk about his father, and I love hearing stories when our people win what I call the game, right?
Yeah.
You hit your professional career, you finish it on your terms in a financial position where you can then go on, start pulling that pension, but then move into a second career where you're now pulling a pension and a paycheck. Now, guess what you're doing with your financial plan, right? You're dumping money into those rainy day funds. You get yourself your financial advisor, and you do that for 3 to 5 years, and you're set, right? I mean, financially, that's one less thing you have to worry about. Um, for me personally, I went from retirement literally to pull that pension out of Arizona from Flagstaff PD and went right into the Taos Police Department in New Mexico. and served as the chief for a couple of years. So now I'm pulling a pension and a chief's salary. It wasn't a lot. It was Taos of all places. So it wasn't a whole lot, but it was more than I was making at my position with Flagstaff PD. Right. When I truly tried to retire after that job in Taos, I moved back to Arizona. There were several factors that went into that. My wife and I had trouble selling our house in Flagstaff. It was 2009 when the bubble busted. Um, so we went back to Arizona and I tried retirement. And for about a year and a half, I took that break that Vin was talking about. I didn't do anything. I rode my bike, got in really great bicycle racing shape, and really was enjoying the area we were living in. I did start working part-time for the Gunsight Academy in Paulden as a firearms instructor, but that was a class a month maybe, right? Just a little extra crazy mad money. But I went nuts because I didn't have something else to engage me with some sense of purpose, right? It was a great for about the first 6 months, not having to get up and go to work and carry those 2 cell phones and all the things that the other gentlemen have referred to. But I found if I didn't have some plans, something else to feel that I was contributing to, I started going stir crazy. And that's why I took the job up here in Colorado when it came around about a year later. I was lucky enough to get hired and went back into the profession as an assistant chief and then eventually served as the chief. Made the same mistake the second time. So the difference here is this time I have found hobbies that I absolutely love doing. They get me out of the house. They're creative in nature. So to be fully transparent, I've taken up blacksmithing and I've taken up welding, and I'm starting to be an artist, which I never thought I would associate with my personality, but I love it.
I love that for you. I'm always like, I'm so, and who is doing blacksmithing? That's like such a rare one. And I think
That's
it's
old school.
awesome. Yeah, it's old school. It's super cool. How is your, what was it? Stained glass? Was that the other one you were doing?
I dipped my toe in that a little bit too, and yeah, and we've got this place. It's a maker space called Tinker Mill in the area that I live. They're actually all over the place. If you're looking for some of these hobbies, where it's basically like a gym membership, you pay a certain amount a month, you get to go in and use all their equipment, and you just pay for the perishables. So like the propane gas for the forge, the glass that you use if you're doing stained glass, all that kind of stuff. And again, it pushes you out of your comfort zone is the first big piece of recommendation I would make. And then if you find it rewarding, that's the brass ring right there.
Oh,
So Ken, you said about just real quick, you mentioned about sense of purpose, and I think that's such a pivotal piece. And then the camaraderie piece that I know for me personally, I didn't realize how much I was going to miss it. But when you add the two, I didn't realize how much of a hole that left in me. And I had to recreate that. And it took a while to get there.
Yeah, I'm very similar to you gentlemen as well. My dad retired from law enforcement. I had the benefit of watching him go through his retirement process, and it was not a pretty picture for him. So I learned a lot of lessons there, but he did give me one piece of advice that stuck with me, and it was, look, the day you leave, don't expect a parade. You're lucky if someone will hold the door so it doesn't hit you in the ass on the way out. And if that's the case, great, but they're not going to be calling. They're not going to be coming around checking. Their lives go on in the profession, and you have to go find something else that fulfills you, or you're going to be miserable in retirement. And that's not how you win the game, right?
You're right.
So, yeah.
Yeah.
well, oh, so many different parts I want to unpack. I like what you guys are saying, knowing like what are you going to be jumping into next, but knowing that from the beginning of your career. And right now we have a lot of young generation that's not prepping to do 20 years. You guys knew you were going in to do at least 20 and then see from there. Some of these guys were in like the swipe right, swipe left. And it's like, I'm going to get through the academy, maybe get through FTO. I don't like it. I'm going to swipe, go do something else. So we need to shift that mindset and the awareness of like, what is your plan if you're going to leave? Because a lot of the younger kids too, they're leaving and then they're like, maybe I shouldn't have left. So lots of conversation to unpack here. And I just wanted to give a good, Ken, you already mentioned it, but Bill, the fact that your dad it's over 30 years, he's still kicking.
Oh yeah, it's 30 years retirement. He's 81. Actually, his 30 years was when he was still 80. He started young like I did. and he's traveled all over the place. He didn't ever take a second job. He was smart with his money. He lived off his retirement. Him and my mom have traveled all over. They enjoyed every moment of it. And now, as they're slowing down a little bit, uh, he actually is still continuing to be active around the house and doing stuff. So it is still winning. And and the thing is, well, he had an easy transition because as he was getting out, I was coming in. So he never had that, hey, you're completely done with police work, because he was living vicariously through me for a little bit. But he has kept up with what's going on in law enforcement. He has kept up on what's happening. And he does it as a hobby of being aware, because he still loves the job, even though he's been out of it since 1995. He started in 63, but he loved the job. But yeah, no, his interests were hobby. His interest was golfing, was traveling, was going on cruises. And also his interest was being my unofficial mentor, where when I was young, I would get off of a graveyard shift and I would sit down with him at the breakfast table and we'd debrief what happened during the shift and we'd talk about it. And also, as I went on through my career, be it detective, sergeant, lieutenant, captain, acting chief, he was there to give me bits and pieces of advice and help me with that. So he utilized that to help him to adjust. And I picked his brain about retirement to help me get ready to move, because I remember I was out with my injury. It was acting up bad and I couldn't drive at the time. And he lives just one town over, and he would come pick me up and drive me to go to my medical appointment, get my therapy, get my medical exam. And then we go out for breakfast. And he actually looked at me and said, hey, you know what? It may be time for you to go. And coming from somebody who started in 1963, went down to LAPD to help with the Watts riots, was a cop from the time he was 19 to the time he turned 50. That was one of those things got me thinking, you know what, it may be. And then I didn't want to give it up, but because of that advice and advice for some other retirees, it made me realize, hey, we all have our day in the sun. And for your own good, you got to kind of step back. And as long as you have thought about it and you've planned about it, it's not as hard of a step as if one day you're there and the next day you don't know what you're doing.
So Bill, you said about your dad, and I have a similar background. Thank God my mother and father are still alive, 81 and 80. My dad is, and to your point, Ken, still winning. He's been collecting a pension since 1981. It's like unbelievable, right? And not so much the debriefing stuff, but my indoctrination into that world, and I've shared this on other podcasts. I'm like a 10-year-old kid, and my parents, this is like the height of the 70s, and having all these cop friends and their girlfriends and wives come to the house and have these parties. And my sister and I were like being a fly on the wall and hearing all this adult banter. Like I said, it was intoxicating. The story piece, the camaraderie piece, that's what pulled me in. And I only say that because my father is still telling stories from forever ago. And we get together for family parties, or even they'll come to the house and or we go there, and my girlfriend will hear these stories and she can't stop laughing because they're so authentic and funny. And it's not even a blood and guts kind of thing. It's just that human condition. So I only say that because, like, when you were saying how you transitioned into retirement and how you leaned on your dad, I can't help but think part of what I'm doing now on the creative side with the writing stems from all those storytelling moments that I experienced growing up and even now. So it's kind of interesting how that connects from one generation to the next and how we kind of pass the torch forward.
And it's very important. Those stories are very important. So, being in the wellness and the coaching space, we're always talking about the stigma that you don't talk about it. You don't seek out mental health, whatever. And that's shifting and needs to change. But those stories, that's really what you guys have had. Because I've sat at that table listening. I grew up at the table listening to all those stories. I would say to the audience now, include your spouses and your kids every once in a while in those lunch meetings. Let them be the fly on the wall and hear those stories, because that is the future generation. And it also just sheds light of, like, what? You mean what happened there? And trust me, your kids are absolutely listening to those stories. It's fascinating. My dad was a storyteller. I heard the same stories over and over and over. And as a child, I was like, oh my God, again. And now that he's been gone for so long, I'm like, man, if I could just hear that story.
You appreciate it, right?
Yeah. So the camaraderie, and you guys were talking about a couple of things. Well, one, again, with the parents that are retired and living, not falling into, I hate, there's so much focus on, oh, you only get 5 to 7 years after you retire, then you're going to die. Like, what is that? Maybe some statistics are saying that, but if you focus on that, that's going to become your reality. So let's get rid of that, cancel, delete. And there are people that are getting every penny of their pension, that are thriving through long years of retirement. Same with marriage, happily married for decades. You don't have to get divorced in this. So let's get rid of some of these narratives that are getting shoved in all of your guys' faces all the time. Shift the story. And then what you're talking about with your dad mentoring you, that is that's just a piece. Maybe we'll do something with it, and maybe the departments do something with this. If you have somebody that is getting ready to retire, make a program where, you know what, you're going to retire, you're going to take a 6-month minute so that you can breathe and you can get your balance. But within the year, we want you to come back and we want to talk to our academy. We want you to come back and pick somebody, or before you leave, pick somebody that you like, that you see something in, and be like, hey, I want to keep in contact with you. I want to mentor you. It's almost like AA. You don't have to have all the answers. You got to be one step ahead, right? It keeps you going through sobriety, well, through retirement sobriety, because just getting cut off, that's rough. That is isolation, and it's not a healthy model, as we all know. Um, Mike, so for you, when you were retiring, so you had a little bit different, because I was in your world and I was like, all right, you're getting ready, you're getting ready. And it's funny because after you retired, you were getting ready to jump into this position, but it wasn't happening as fast as you wanted to. And I was sitting there being like, hey, you're retired. Go paddleboard. You're missing it. You're
Yeah, so I think we've heard the theme about planning, and I think there's not like a set way to do it. We all kind of figured it out how we figured it out. Some good, some not so good. I look back, man, so my wife's younger than me, and this was a big thing. I wasn't prepared for this. Was I was retiring, but guess what? She was still working. And as much as she was happy for me, it was rough for her, because she's like, geez, I want to retire. So, and
You should have became a cop then.
yeah. So she is our financial person. So she takes care of all our finances. So like, when it came down to when I wanted to retire, like it literally took our financial planner to come to our house, sit down with us, go over all our finances. And my wife had to hear from our financial planner saying, you guys are good. You've planned well. But literally it took that. I mean, it took another person to actually say, you guys are good. And then my wife was able to relax a little bit. The retirement seminar I'm going to teach. So obviously there's a financial component, but the part where I definitely could have done better was the communication with my spouse. Like, I was ready for it, but because we didn't have those conversations, she wasn't ready for it. And that sounds weird. It's like, well, you're retiring, like, just do it. It's like, well, it's not that easy, especially if you have a spouse still working. So looking back, yes, I for sure could have done better communicating, have a more kind of strategic plan. Definitely worked out for me. Some of my friends that retired from the sheriff's department, we have a breakfast club and a lunch club, and it's really cool just to see those guys. I mean, some people are like, hey, you're not retired. You're still working. I'm like, no, I'm retired. I'm doing this job. One, it's my purpose now to take care of our people. We just got to do a better job in the wellness realm. One of them is helping our people with retirement. But I don't even look at it as work. I mean, it is my passion, my purpose. So for people that are listening like, what is your passion and purpose? Like the day you retire, that doesn't end. You still need that moving forward. And that could be hobbies, just like Ken talked about. Like, that's awesome. You're doing things you love, maybe something you didn't even know you were going to do. My passion is I do play pickleball and I paddleboard Mondays and Fridays. That's my wellness days. Like, and people laugh, like, they're like,
How's your serve, Mike? How's your pickleball serve?
oh, no, I'm pretty good. I won't say my rating, but those of you that there's like rating, but that's a whole nother thing. I talked about again the breakfast club, the lunch clubs, pickleball. Man, talk about fellowship and social and connecting. Game changer. Like, I already kind of had that, but I see people that are retired that play, and just to have that, hey Mike, how you doing? Like, what's going on? How was your trip? Like, that continues, guys, just because you retired. And somebody, Vin, you kind of hit on it, just having that camaraderie. Like, you still need that. Like, I still have my
Without a
pop
doubt.
friends, but I also need my friends just out in the community. Like, it's such a cool fellowship that I never really had before, again, outside of the workspace. So it's important to have those hobbies, like Ken said, and then to have that some sort of fellowship where you're connecting with someone once a month, every couple of months, lunch club, breakfast club. I highly recommend that, just to touch base, because we're all busy, right? Like, we're all doing our retirement thing, but it's important to connect with those people. And there's some people that aren't doing good. I'm just being honest, and to have those
Yeah.
conversations like, how you doing? And they're like, well, I'm bored. I'm like,
More than we realize.
yeah. And it's so they have that connection now. It's like, hey, like, let's find a hobby. Like, you work at Home Depot. Like, let's talk about that. And unfortunately, some people don't have those conversations, and then they do it. And then they're like, oh, crap, what do I do now?
So one of the things I wanted to bring up that I think is kind of pertinent, and Ken touched on it. We all touched on it in a different way. The financial piece. So it seems like everyone here, we did a pretty good job uh, taking care of that. Where now we're at a point where it's not about the money, which is great. But I feel the other side of it, which could be a little sticky. You're passionate, you want to give back, or you want to go in a direction of something that's like your next chapter, but you have the financial safety, and it's hard sometimes to come out of that comfort zone. And it's also sometimes hard to check yourself, because you could say, you know what, I'm not doing it. And I, just me personally, I've found over the years I struggle with that part. I'm not Rockefeller by any stretch. I can live within the financial world I have now, but I do want to be active, and I to everyone's point, I want to have that passion. I want to have that purpose, because that should never go away. That keeps us alive. I think, the older we get, our bodies are naturally changing, but having that mind where you're still sharp and you're still involved in something really goes a long way, I feel. So I can't lose sight of that. But then the challenge for me, at least, is saying, all right, it's not about money, it's about passion, but I don't have to put up with their you know what. And I'm more inclined to walk away when sometimes I have to lean in more and fight through and realize, well, what am I doing this for? I'm doing it, like Bill said, I want to help other cops. We were all one of them, right? We walked in their shoes, and we have that passion. So I have to drown out the noise, put that to the side. And as we all know, that can be challenging. Sometimes you feel like you're walking that tightrope. Is this really worth it? Is it worth my time when I could just sit home and play pickleball, or I can weld, or whatever it is? So that's just how I see it at this stage.
Well, side.
And I think you hit a really important point then, because what is retirement? It's different for every one of us,
Yeah.
right? Some people retire and that's it. They become homebodies. They take up bird watching and gardening, stuff they love doing, but they never go back to work. Some people retire and then go find not a job, right? It's a calling. They go find something they're passionate about. They never work a day in their life, but they are employed again. So for each one of us, retirement changes and phases in and out as our life changes and our priorities change. And you have to realize that that's how it's going to be. To stay retired, though, means that you're financially set, that you don't have to work, but you can work if you find something you're passionate about, or you can take a break and step away for a 6 month period and do nothing, right? Because you have planned ahead for that kind of a lifestyle. And I think that's really important for everybody to understand early on in their career what retirement really is. It's not walking out the door the last time and then sitting on the couch for the rest of your life watching Jerry Springer, right? There are different types of retirement, and it's different for every one of us.
You
I
guys,
used to joke.
oh no,
Just want to say one last thing. We used to joke around when we were kids on the job. When I do 20, I'm just going to grow a beard and smoke weed, you know? And obviously that's not how it's supposed to be. But that's what we would say, as stupid kids.
I was just going to say too, for retirement purposes, you never know when it's going to be, and retirement's going to be so different for everybody. Very good friend of mine was actually my field training officer. When he made lieutenant, he was like 36. He was going to go to the National Academy. He went in to get his physical exam, and they discovered a heart ailment, a serious heart ailment. And that National Academy examination ended up being the long road to his retirement before he was even 40 years old. Now he's been retired for 15, 16 years, and we keep touch all the time. We chat with each other on text. He goes back and forth from Idaho, but we get together for barbecues. And he sat down and goes, "Hey, Bill, are you finally out of it? Have you finally pushed it away? When you retired, it's supposed to be completely out of you." And I said, "Well, I'm not doing the job anymore. I'm not sitting going, I wish I had the badge on or anything like that." But I said, "No, I still love the job. I still want to give back." He goes out and plays golf every morning. He comes back, he watches Netflix, he plays around with the dog. He does little things like that. That's his retirement. My retirement's still a little bit different. He can't understand that completely. He's a pig-headed guy and I love him, but he just can't understand that little part of it. For me, I told him, "Hey, so I wake up every morning. I wake up 6 times a week at 6 o'clock in the morning and I walk 9.5 miles to get my day going. I need to do that because of my back. If I don't, I'm limping around like crazy. Go home, I do some of my consulting stuff. I work on my yard. I read. I go hit a bucket of balls. Everybody's retirement is different and it's based on personality. And there's no one stop answer for all of this. And I realized that a lot as I saw other people, somewhat my generation, were going out the door. I heard a lot of well, you know what, this job doesn't love me because they don't keep touch with me. Well, I hate to say, you know what? Some of the people that are saying that were the people throughout their entire career that hated the agency, did nothing but talk bad about the agency,
So right. So right.
complained about everything. And the second they retire, "Oh my God, the department doesn't love me anymore. They only sent my badge to me in the mail. My retirement badge was sent to me in the mail." Well, you moved 7 states away. Nobody calls me. You were a jerk to everybody. And it's like, you have to realize, it's like,
What do you
hey,
expect?
the job's going to move on. You have to move on as well. Doesn't mean the job doesn't love you anymore. But if you're a patrol officer or you're a chief, the day you walk out the door, somebody's taking your spot because the profession and the organization has to move on. And the job doesn't owe you anything. Yes, you may get hurt. Your agency, your city, your municipality, they may have to take care of certain things, but the job itself doesn't owe you anything. And that's what a lot of people don't have that in their mindset. They think, "I was a cop for 20, 25 years. They owe me something." No, it doesn't, because there are other cops that are working just as hard, if not harder than you, that are forced out the door for different reasons, have to retire, or they plan out their retirement. The job moves on, the profession moves on. And if you don't move on and you don't get that through your mind, then you're going to struggle. And those are the people I see struggle a lot more. Those people that were the naysayers throughout the career, then all of a sudden, "Hey, I'm not getting love anymore," compared to those people that go, "Hey, I love my job and but I have a plan ahead of time." And a lot of those were the 20 and out guys. In California, there's no such thing as 20 and out anymore. It's more like 30 and out. But it was that same thing, is I'm going to do my time. I'm out the door. Well, you know what? And I remember one guy in particular, he had his countdown to retirement clock on the little station where he sat and did his report.
mm-hmm.
Well, he made such a big deal. "I'm going to retire. I'm going to retire. I'm going to retire." Well, then he finally did retire. And we didn't hear anything from him, and he didn't want to do anything. And one day he just showed up with a box to clear his stuff out. And it's like, hey, you need help with that? No, I got it. Okay. Want to go grab some lunch? No, I'm okay. And it's like, well, you were making this big deal about it, and now you don't want to do anything about it. 6 months later, he's complaining about everything. So it's the mindset of the people, and he's getting through to them at a younger age, and talking to them about that earlier in their career, about you make your own retirement. So you have to start planning it ahead of time. And that's where the job has to do better, because the job's looking at, when the chief retires, who's going to be that next chief? Who's going to be that next captain? The job is looking at how the agency is going to move forward, but we have to start helping our people realize how they're going to move forward.
One of the things, it ties into what you're saying, Bill, not only the retirement piece, but the mental wellness that comes with that. I had a conversation with an officer. She's active in the Chicago Police Department, and she does these things with these debriefings, almost like an autopsy, not a medical autopsy, but something that ties into putting the pieces of the puzzle together of why someone might, take that final act. And I said, it made me think. I said, what about these exit interviews when you leave service, to have those conversations about these issues? And like Tami said, maybe assign a peer support person, maybe for 6 months or some period of time, like have that within uh, the culture, so to speak. And like we even talked about on the medical side, I'm sure all of us here have been concussed on the job, whether it be a vehicle accident, fighting with the perp. We never have those conversations and how that affects our serotonin levels and certain aspects of our physicality. Like these are some of the forward ways of thinking that we should really start conversing about. And I'm not here to pee on any agency. I'm very grateful to be in the position I am, and I don't blame anyone for any of the decisions that I made or some of the transgressions I've had post retirement. But to your point, Bill, we've had those people, right? Those negative people while they were on the job. And for some reason, they tell themselves the story, everything's going to get better when I leave. But you know what usually happens with those people? Self-isolation, because they didn't have a plan. They didn't connect with people while they were on. Now they lost whatever camaraderie they had. And now they're sitting in an empty house wondering, well, no one cares about me. You kind of did it to yourself. Now, listen, I know myself, I've had moments post my career where I had some issues with some of the politics, and that was kind of part of my problem, my Achilles heel, where I find myself at times, you get in your head and you could be isolated. And then you have to realize, hey, this is not good. This is not good. This doesn't lead to a good ending. And maybe, it takes people like us being on the other side to kind of rein those people in and say, hey, listen, let's press pause here. Let's talk about this. What's really going on in your mind? Why do you feel the way you do? And kind of unpack it. Like Tami and I have talked about this with the coaching, asking those questions, being an active listener. And that's kind of one of the things I'm trying to be better at. But it all ties in, I think, to this conversation, if that makes sense.
It's really important topic that we're talking about. And if anybody listens to all these podcasts or watches us in presentations or training, I could probably do a better job promoting law enforcement coaching. I don't ever say anything. I don't do a sales pitch. I'm like, if you like what we're talking about, the right people are going to attract us. But on this topic, I'm going to just say law enforcement coaching is exactly one of the best spots that you could utilize our services. If you are getting ready for retirement, you're going through retirement, or you're on the other side and you're listening and these things are checking the boxes. Maybe you're getting a little triggered, being like, I wasn't an asshole. Nobody reaching out to me anyway. I was nice. Everybody liked me. What the fuck are you guys talking about? Reach out. this is the perfect part for coaching, especially with the people that have been through it. Chris is going to be on our next episode, and he talks about, he did undercover. He did all sorts of crazy, scary stuff in his career. And he always shares that the scariest part of his time were the minutes leading up to his retirement ceremony. He was in the bathroom dry heaving because he didn't know if he could go on, or who was he going to be if he wasn't a cop. And yeah, and it was terrifying. And then what do you do on the other side of that? And there's a couple other things I want to talk about really quick that doesn't get talked about enough. So you retire, you take your breath, right? Now you're looking for another job because you're bored. Now I want to go into that really quick. I'm gonna go on three Tami tangents. So buckle up. Okay, so first, masculine, feminine energy. I'm not talking he, she, they, them, I'm not talking about any of that. I'm talking masculine, feminine energy within the body. We all have it. Whether you're a male, female, we have that balance within us. Law enforcement is a masculine dominated field, mainly with men, and then women that are in it have to be in masculine energy. Women in society, we are living in a masculine world. We have to go get shit done, right? Feminine energy is the opposite. Feminine energy is about sitting back, allowing, receiving, and being. Now, when you're in a male-female relationship and your male person or the masculine energy of the relationship retires and now they're home and they're not providing and they're not going out and doing these things, they're home all the time and they're sitting there, there's going to be resentment that pops up from the feminine energy. Because now it's like, even though you've provided and you've done all of this stuff and there's logical understanding, there is still a subconscious, unspoken imbalance. So one of the things, and if I'm like, if you're like, wait, what? I'm not going to go too deep into the weeds with this one, but if you want me to, I can absolutely educate a little bit more on this. But in those relationships, for the men, doing something that you feel like you're protecting and you're providing, especially the law enforcement officers, you serve and protect. Now you need to be finding a different way of how does that shift and make sense to be providing and protecting for your female and the feminine energy within your relationship. Does that make sense to you guys?
Totally. It's a great point.
Oh,
It's a great point.
Okay, so I don't want to go too much onto that one. Next thing I want to talk about really quick, the rude awakening when you step out of law enforcement. For the most part, cops are very honest. There's few that need to go back to the basics, but for the most part, everybody has integrity. You guys are honest. You guys can trust each other. You might not like each other, but you have to trust each other. Life or death situations. You retire, you step out of law enforcement, you go get a job somewhere else. Dishonesty, no integrity, no
Good point.
professionalism. Don't show up to things. Don't show up on time. We have had people from the civilian world try to interview to be part of our team, literally do an interview on Zoom in their bed, in their pajamas, messy hair, being like, oh, I want to be a coach for law enforcement. What? Denied. Okay. So you have to have that mental prep that once you step out, if you are going to go get a job somewhere else, you're going to be frustrated really quick unless you're like, okay, how can we teach? How can we lead? How can we learn? Right? Especially if you get into security. We get into law enforcement into security, especially for like major sporting events. And now you have two different worlds. You have law enforcement that has the training, the professionalism, and you got 20-something-year-old big dudes from the gym that are bouncers, but they have no protocols, no policies. They don't understand, and there can be a clash with that. So I'm just giving you guys the ballpark awareness of some of the things to look out for. And then the last Tami tangent that I want to go on, adrenal fatigue and testosterone dump. You guys are in fight or flight for 20 plus years of your career, ready to go, and then you relax and you're older. Hormones play a huge part in this. When you retire and you have that adrenal fatigue, you're tired. That also plays into a little bit of the depression that comes. It's not just that you're missing the job. Your body's literally working against you. Women, whole body, I mean, wrong audience for this right now, but women are going through, once you hit 36, 37, you start getting the pre-perimenopause, then you go into, and none of this stuff gets talked about. everybody's just all of a sudden off their rocker and having different emotions and nobody knows why. So those are my Tami tangents. What do you guys think about all that?
So the thing you said with when you flipped your hair and you went crazy with the Zoom interview in the bed. When I first left, I had a couple of different choices, like I said. I had this sports coaching opportunity to manage a facility and run programs specifically for baseball. I'm a baseball fanatic, and I love it because it's coaching, working one-on-one with the next generation, and I just loved it. And I had a close friend, have still a close friend that talked me into getting into this seasonal tax franchise. Now he has a separate tax wealth management business. So I'm thinking, okay, he's the expert. And even though there was some red flags with the concept, I said, you know what? In my mind, I'm just a cop, right? Even though I have some financial background and went to college for that, he's the accounting expert. I'm just going to put more trust in him. And I just want to do something else. We get in it. I did it for 2.5 years. I hated it. And I bring this up because him and I almost lost a friendship over it. And we still laugh about it today, where he said to me on multiple occasions, this is not cop. This is not you being a cop anymore. I said, you don't understand. I said, it feels like it. I said, but now I'm a fireman because I'm putting fires out every day and I'm dealing with these disingenuous employees and some of the clients with disingenuous. I said, I can't do this. I have enough integrity. I can't do this. And he didn't see the day to day because he would come out at the end of the night and make sure all the I's were dotted and T's were crossed. But I was like the managing partner. I was the one dealing with the employees. Tami, when I tell you, right, in Italian, we get agita. I was going home with so much agita. I'm like, this is not fun. I'm making less money than when I was a dishwasher at 14 years old, working for $2 an hour. I said, why am I doing this? And that's why I say when I look back, I really, really should have separated myself, processed the career, realized this is not the same world when you go into a different environment, whether it be corporate, your own business, other things. It's not the same way that we matriculated in our police careers. You know, it's a paramilitary organization, and I didn't make that transfer, and it created issues for me.
One thing I want to tag on is regarding the relationships at home, about going from being the provider or being the person at work. And that's where you have to have communication and open conversations with your partner. And you have to do that from the very beginning and bring them in. I'm lucky. My wife, like I said, law enforcement family, father was a police chief. Uncle was a police sergeant, kind of retired with 15 years on the job. Being a typical cop, I married a dispatcher. And she had 36 and a half years as a dispatcher, retired as a dispatch supervisor, and then went to a nearby agency to be the records and evidence supervisor for a few years. Well, she understood the game. She understood how the practices worked. But I went from being the captain that went to work every day, that I would come home at a certain time or I'd be late at meetings. I had my company car out there. I was going to and from. She said it was like being with a doctor because I get phone calls all the time, get called out in the middle of the night, to now I'm home. Now I'm doing stuff at home. And it's like explaining that, hey, now this is going to be our reality. This is going to be the job I'm doing. I'm going to be at home. So I can't have little to-do lists. I could have honey to-do lists. But because I'm actually working, I'm at home, but I'm working, things aren't always going to be, hey, I'm not going to be able to mop the floors every other day. I'm not going to be able to do all these little things that if I was strictly retired, not doing anything, I possibly could. It's having those open conversations and having that acceptance, because she was very accepting of when I had to make that call to retire. She understood. She was there when the doctor said, Bill, you don't retire 10 years from now, you're in a wheelchair. It was like, okay, that's an eye opener. People don't get those eye openers often. But she was also the person that my last day when I cleaned out my office, the department had a little pizza party. They got a cake, and then the goodbye transmission over the radio. And my agency would actually line up the cars and take you out of town. They would give you a little escort. So it was They were lining up then. I'm sitting at my desk for the last time. It was empty, and I had a full desk. I had challenge coins. I had all the memorabilia. I will pack rack. I love having my police memorabilia. So we cleaned all that. So I'm in an empty office. I'm sitting there. And we had just gone all through this, and she starts tearing up. And she looks at me and goes, I don't want you to leave. I don't want you to retire. And I remember jokingly going, well, it's a little bit too late for that. The papers have been signed, but it wasn't, it was the ending of that reality and moving into the next reality. So it's having those conversations are key. And regarding going and now dealing with I hate to say because everybody always says officers and civilians. Well, technically we're all civilians since we're not military, but the officers and the public. Well, as you're transitioning, you have to remember, we've all been dealing with the public for decades. We've all seen the public can be crazy. People can be crazy. I mean, we interacted with people at their absolute worst. So you have to realize when you're going from that paramilitary structure where, hey, this is how it flows, this is how it's done. You talk bad about your boss, you could be getting a rip, you could be getting smacked, and you transition into a civilianized when it's kind of wild. People are backstabbing each other all over the coffee. People are talking about everything at the coffee pot. You got to remember, you're leaving one world and you're entering another world. So you kind of have to adjust to them. And if you don't want to do that, well, get the hell out. Don't put yourself through that misery, because they're cops and regular people. We're different. Even though not one's better than the other, we're just different. And we have to realize, hey, you know what? If you want to transition to that, tuck your badge away. Put your ID card away. And now you're no longer the former chief, former sergeant, former anything. You're Bill, the guy whose job is to run the Xerox machine. That's your new role. So accept that role. And the masculine femininity, I'm no doctor, but regarding that,
You play one on TV.
Yeah, trust me. I was a PIO for many years. You don't want me playing anything on TV. But it's yes, we're all retirement time is also the time in which both men and women, our bodies are changing, our hormones are changing. That is where we have to concentrate on taking care of ourselves. Now, like me, that's where I do my walks. That's where I try to get my physical activity. I'm nowhere near the shape that I was in. I'm heavier than I was. I'm probably not as strong as I was, but I'm still in good shape for a person of my age compared to the average person. But you have to keep some kind of routine that keeps you mentally and physically going. And that's the key. It's like I go for my walks, but I'm listening to an audiobook. So I'm keeping this going as well as I'm keeping this going. People forget it. They go, I'm retired. I'm going to sit on the couch and eat bonbons all day. Those are the people that last only 3 or 4 years. And for women, you're going through an entire different thing that I don't even want to touch because, like I said, my wife was in dispatch for 36 and a half years. I hung out in dispatch a lot. Dispatch is primarily a female-dominated part of law enforcement. If you want to see craziness at any time, I would go back and handle the worst domestic violence. I would go back and deal with all the things I dealt with personnel-wise and discipline-wise on the PD side, on the officer side. If you put me in a comm center, I would have lasted 10 seconds before I ran out screaming because that's a different dynamic. And that's all that. And a lot of times it's all those women going through all that stuff at the same time. But we have to realize that.
You should write a book on that.
Oh, God.
I could be your ghostwriter.
Right there. So there's all those things we have to be aware of and we have to be thinking of as we reach those marks. And that's where the mentorship comes in. That's where the senior officers come in. That's where the command officers come in. That's when the chief should not just be the figurehead of the department, but somebody who walks downstairs and talks to the people and just keeps a little tiny touch with. That's where the captains would be. I mean, I always thought I over-communicated with my folks, and to the point where I bored the crap out of them because I could see their eyes roll in the back of their heads. 3 months after retirement, 6 months after retirement, I'm having lunch with somebody. I promoted to corporal who then became a sergeant, and he goes, Bill, we don't understand how much we miss that over-communication right now because we're just not getting that anymore. And it's like, hey, you used to bore the living hell out of me. But I could tell you cared by doing that. And when you were there, It was just you being Bill. So it was like I never purposely went down there to do anything like, hey, I want them to think of me this way. I was just being who I was and trying to help these guys out. Go, hey, you may not want to do that because I did it and it bit me in the butt. Or, hey, think of it, it may sound fun, but let's tailor down a little bit. Or, you know
The
what?
voice of reason.
Yeah, I said, learn from my mistakes. I said, yeah, I mean, I have the medals on the wall, but I also have the 3-day rip for 3 days on the beach for doing something stupid. And look at my wall. There's the reason why I was suspended. I put it right up there on the wall. So we need to have that open communication. And that's where it comes back to the mentorship. We mentor people properly on the job. As they rotate out of the job, those 3 tangents we just talked about, they'll be able to adjust a little bit better too.
Well, and I love that you brought up the comm center because I advocate for dispatch. It frustrates me because in the law enforcement space, one, they're not considered first responders. They're the first to respond, but the last to receive any kind of support or anything. And we even in Arizona, we had a politician that literally said that dispatchers aren't dodging bullets or running into burning buildings, so they don't count. And it was like, first of all, did that actually just come out of your mouth? And they're not getting the support. So they're handling all this stuff. While you guys respond to one call, they may have taken 10 or more. So we need, for those listening, remember, whatever your rank is, I don't care. If you are on your patrol, be nice to your dispatchers, enunciate, be clear on the radio, check in and say thank you. Let them know if something worked out that seemed horrible, a lot of screaming or whatever. Go in and say, hey, that worked out okay, they're okay. Let them know. Communicate with your dispatchers, support them. For those, I'm just going to do another little tangent too. For the grants out there, include them. We got grant funding to help. Dispatch didn't count and they didn't get any of the funding. And it's just like, we personally, our company matched it and made sure that they were included. So take care of your comm center people. That's
The thing with dispatch is they don't get closure. We understand closure.
Point.
We understand. They don't. So that's why the communication part comes up. I remember we had a shooting incident and they were asking questions because they wanted to kind of know. So while we were dealing with the tactical stuff, we were dealing with that. We took the time to explain stuff of why we did certain things. This was the outcome. This is what happened. And so they would understand we got the call like this, but it actually turned out something here. But it's that open communication because they take one call, they send it out, and that's where it ends for them. And they have all these thoughts. Did I do the right thing? Did I say the right thing? Did we send the right people? That's where we have to have that open communication with them.
well, and if you do have a critical incident and you're doing a debrief, bring them into that as well. So I know we're kind of going left field, but this is all super important stuff that yelling from the rafters to whoever's listening. Hopefully our messages land somewhere. Don't know who's getting it. I'll just say, if you're listening to this and this is like, hey, yes, thumbs up, please leave a comment so we know that this is getting out there to somebody. Great conversation. I want to honor everybody's time. So in true fashion, I'd like to wrap it up and go around with your last little parting words. If somebody were to just tune into this part, what is your little takeaway for them? What's your piece of advice when it comes to retirement realities? Whoever wants to start can go first.
I guess the best piece of advice would be recognize that there's a financial requirement to plan for retirement, but the financial piece is very different than actual retirement. They're 2 very different animals. And until you realize it and start looking at it that way, you don't have to start thinking about retirement when you're just coming out of the academy or off FTO. Should you? It's dependent on each person, but you should be thinking about financial planning at that stage. And you should be doing financial planning through the entire career if you're going to be successful in retirement. Now, that varies from person to person because retirement is different for all of us. We had the comment earlier, how come you can't step away from the profession? Well, every one of us on this panel is still involved with law enforcement, even though we're retired. I have a coaching session with a client tomorrow who's laser focused on a promotional opportunity, and I get to be involved in the potential success of that person by working for law enforcement coaching. That's giving back, right? That's where I get my sense of purpose. my hobbies get me out of the house and help my wife and I stay on a good relationship for the most part, right? Because we have that alone time as well. So all of the things we talked about here are important, but the foundation is the financial planning. And then what is retirement going to look like for you when you get there?
I was gonna say that I think it's very important to realize that there is life after the job. Um, the job doesn't define you. It prepares you for the next chapter in your life. I think there's skills when you get the opportunity to process the career, give yourself that time. I think you'd be surprised on some of the skills you learned along the way that could be applied in your personal and professional life, depending on the direction you go in. With that said, you have to be mindful of that transitional phase and realize that you still need to have something, could be a few different things that give you the passion, that gives you the sense of purpose, that recreates the camaraderie and the mental and physical well-being that you need for the overall picture of you being your best self. Because it's very easy, like Bill had said, and I think we all kind of touched on this, to leave the career, feel some bitterness, feel some sense of, like Tami said, that adrenaline dump or whatever that feeling is, where you can easily become isolated, and that's not a good thing. That's not a good thing. You still have to work on being some kind of productive member of society for yourself, and I think that allows you to be your best self to help other people, which I think is a powerful thing. And gratefully and thankfully we're all doing that in our own way. So I think that's important.
Yes, for me, again, I keep going to the planning part, and I did some parts well, but looking back, I suggest 5 years out, you start planning. Pick maybe 2 to 3 different dates that you want to retire. Sometimes cops were, oh, I'm going to do 25, or I'm doing 30 no matter what. Maybe, maybe not. Pick some dates and actually look at the financials of that, because that was an eye opener to me. I was like, wow, there's not that much difference between 6 months and doing another year. Getting a financial planner, that was, again, I told my story about that. That was game changer for me, because that person was able to tell my spouse, like, you guys are good, you did well financially. Hobbies, I used to play pickleball, I used to go paddleboarding. Like, start doing that stuff, bring that back before you retire. Start getting in that routine where you're doing those things and not waiting till you retire and then try to do them. Start doing those towards the end of your career. I mean, you should be doing them throughout your career. Easier said than done. Again, find some hobbies, and then I would look for, especially in California, Bill Bill knows this. Find a little part-time job that just. I have a friend that always wanted to work at Costco, and he was a retired sergeant. He was pushing carts at Costco, and I'm like, as a wellness coordinator, I'm like, hey, like, are you okay? He's like, it's awesome. I walk 8 miles a day. My back's actually stronger. He was like so happy. And I have another friend that worked at Home Depot, like, and they were both like, yeah, it's not even work. Like, this is just, I don't want to say passes the time. It keeps you busy. It gives you a purpose. Both of those people were able to, like, give some fellowship to some of the younger workers. So, again, Vin talked about it. We talked about it. Your purpose doesn't stop when you retire. It continues. You have that, and you've done this profession. You've done a great job. You've planned lots of things, tactical plans. Like, make your retirement part of a tactical plan and actually write it out, come up with it. If you do my seminar, everybody that leaves is going to have some sort of plan. Of course, you're going to have to work on it with your spouse and stuff, but yeah, I do law enforcement coaching. I'm one of the coaches. I'd love to coach anyone that's listening. My story is not the way. We all have different experiences. Your path's going to be different, but you are in charge of that path, and you can create that path. Don't wait for it to happen. put in the time, plan it, and you're going to have a great career.
My last 2 cents was start financially planning at the very beginning of your career for life, not just for retirement, but for life. Then when it comes to retirement, when you think it's about 5 years out, start thinking about what I want to do after retirement. If I want to do some kind of work, if I want to kind of do business or want to get a consulting, start thinking about what you want to do. Find people in that line and start tapping their brain and learning from them. Then for your own mental health in retirement, you got to let go the little shit. Stop caring about interdepartmental policies. Stop caring about who got promoted and who didn't. Oh my God, they promoted Bob. I can't stand Bob. Who cares? You're no longer part of that agency. What does it do to affect you? Oh my God, they're disciplining John again. They're going after him. You don't even work. You never worked with John. Why is it bothering you? You got to let go of some of that little stuff because that's the stuff that eats away at us. And you got to let that stuff go. You got to find something to do as a hobby. Be it, for me, I'm a huge reader. I love to read. Be it reading, walking, golfing. Do something for yourself because we sacrifice so much in your career that you got to start paying yourself back for the sacrifices we made. Also realize that over your span of your law enforcement career, it could have been 15 cut short because of an injury, or it could have been 35, 40 years. Your family has been with you throughout that career. They've gone through the ups and the downs. You got to make sure you're there for them as much as possible when you're working, but when you're retired, you're not being pulled in 55 different directions anymore. Be with them to transition throughout the next 30, 40, 50 years of your life. We all know those horror stories of people get retired and then 6 months to a year later, they're divorced, or that they can't handle things anymore. They fight or they argue, or there's a suicide involved in there. You know what? Work with your partner as you prepare for retirement. Get to know with your family again as you go through, interrelate with them, get back to seeing them more often, and then start having those meals that you missed. Start making those phone calls, even if it's a text message. Just reconnect. You don't have to lose your family because you're losing your law enforcement family. This is when you keep your family, and if those cops that you want to still relate with, you reinstitute with your true family. And then also like I said, have a little bit of a tie to your department or the profession again, because we've been cops most of our adult lives. You don't stop becoming a cop because you retire. A cop is a mindset. A cop is a lot of who you are inside. It doesn't define you, but it makes you a lot of what you are. You're a retired cop now. You still have the same principles. You still have the same ethics. You still stand for a code. You keep that. But now you're retired, so let's help some other folks out by just having coffee with them, talking to them, sharing your experiences. But don't lose yourself anymore because you're not wearing that blue or tan uniform anymore.
So much good in all of that. I wanted to say with the Costco thing, it's funny because I brought up Costco a couple times because they have a really good business model. They are good at retention because their people are happy there. And it's funny that you said that because just this last week I went to Costco and I had to go to the bathroom and I noticed for the first time, I've been going to Costco for a long time, but on their wall was celebrating their employees that have been there for 20, 25, 30 plus years. And it was the whole wall was stacked. And I was like, law enforcement, you guys are leaving disgruntled and these people are so happy to be there. So if you're a department that's having some low morale, some, retention issues, maybe reach out to Costco and be like, help? I don't know. So much. I wanted to wrap up for one little thing. I'm going to grab this stuff off of here. So giving back, and I kind of want to talk to those that are retiring, that are pissed off. We've talked about you a little bit. If you're disgruntled and you're or whatever it is, finding someone to mentor is great, but going back and working with the kids. And part of my why, I talk about my dad a lot. That's a huge part of my why. So I'm going to share this picture. This is me and my dad fishing. Okay. My dad was a great dad. Was he there for every holiday? I don't even remember, honestly. It doesn't matter because I remember the times that he was there. Don't care what the date was. Don't care what the holiday was. I remember when he was there. I remember when he was in the patrol car and I played t-ball and he's yelling at me through the speaker to steal a base. And I'm like 6. And I'm like, the coach didn't tell me to do that. So I've had so many amazing law enforcement professionals in my life from a young age, and I've watched with the kids. So this is fun. I found this little statue. This is not my style, but it spoke to me. So this officer is bent down with this kid. There's a teddy bear. I personally get offended when everybody's like, fuck the police, defund the police, blah, blah. Shut up. You hate cops until you need cops. And then that's the first thing, call 911. Oh, do you not understand who's coming? So maybe don't be assholes to them. This to me represents law enforcement. This right here, the statue, and I'll post a picture for those that are listening. Taking care and protecting. So if you are, wherever you're at in your career, if you're disgruntled, you're pissed off, take a step back, go talk to the kids. The kids are being heavily influenced on social media these days and not for the good. I would say for departments, I think I've said this before, departments need to step up and go get into the high schools, go get into the driver's ed trainings and teach them, if you get pulled over, this is the appropriate way to handle this stuff. You do need to identify yourself. There is this trend going out on social media that you don't need to identify yourself, that you can roll up the window, and people that would have gotten off with a warning are now getting tased and shot and arrested because you're idiots. So sorry, it's my podcast. I can say what I want, but you're being idiots because you're being influenced by people that have no understanding. So for the departments, the officers, get into the schools, go mentor these kids. For the retirees, Phoenix PD, I just saw a thing go out that they're asking the retirees to come back and be SROs. So if you're kind of lost, go do that for a minute. That's my 2 cents. And you can push back on me and give me a comment if you want, but go help the kids because they really need the guidance. There's a lot of lost youths because of social media. So good cops need to step up wherever you're at in your career. So that, again, Tami Tangent. I've said it before, I might do a spin-off series. Check. With all of that, I want to thank everybody for being here. For those that are tuning in, we're in the month of retirement realities. We have a couple more episodes on this topic. You will see that there is a common theme, financial planning. So what I want you to do is go back to the month prior. You go to our website. It's all there. You can get every episode. Go back, listen to all of those episodes because there were lots of golden nuggets of wisdom. Then rewatch the retirement reality so that you have a full plan. If your department's not giving you anything, I'm doing my best to give you guys as much useful, realistic information, bypassing bureaucracy and red tape and bullshit. No money, no budgets. Just here's the information to live thriving lives. Because thank you for what you do. You have a hard job, and there are people out there that genuinely appreciate the work that you're doing. So with that, thank you guys for being here, and until next week.